Welcome to Our Dark Nature podcast. Your hosts, Linda Kelso and Tracy Bland. Are you ready to get dark? Hi, welcome to Our Dark Nature podcast. I'm Linda Kelso.
And I'm Tracy Bland, and this is our first ever episode, so welcome.
So today's episode, we're going to be talking about satanic panic or not. And a couple of really interesting cases that we're going to talk about happened during the satanic panic era of the 1980s. And one of the people that was actually responsible for this coming about was Anton LaVey, and we're going to discuss him today, and two cases that happened during that time that were very prolific and very horrific.
Pivotal points.
So let's just talk a little bit about Anton LaVey. Now, satanic cults operate within our communities everywhere.
All over.
And there's different degrees of the levels of these satanic cults and how they practice.
Well, just like any religion. You know,
Right.
Christians, Baptists, Lutherans, Mormons. Some of them are more strict than others. I would guess that, Satanism would be along the same lines as any other religion.
Right. Yeah. And everybody has the right to
Practice or believe, whatever you want.
and this is, we are in no way promoting or
Advocating, suggesting.
any of these stories. So
Please do not reenact anything you hear on one of our podcasts. That would just disgust me to the hilt.
So I just want to make a disclaimer right here. If you have a weak stomach and are very sensitive to
A lot of stuff you probably shouldn't be hearing.
you might want to just turn us off right now.
Find
but-
something sweet to watch. That's not us.
So this is really about talking about our dark nature and
Oh, absolutely.
the fucked up side of our species.
Our species does such horrific things to itself. It's amazing the rabbit hole you can bring yourself down through.
And we
We're about to take that trip with you.
fully intend to take you down that rabbit
So
hole.
let's start with one of the founding fathers, you might say.
Yes, Anton LaVey, who founded the Church of Satan.
Oh, organized religion, so not my thing.
And he was very organized and
Oh, God, yeah.
and very commercialized.
Yes, so much so.
And he was responsible for writing the Satanic Bible.
Which is still used today.
And he we're going to talk a little bit more about like the things that he did, but talk about the Satanic Bible, and that really kind of started I think the whole Satanic Panic. And we're talking, the Satanic Panic actually started in the 1980s, and it started in the Bible Belt.
And if anybody knows anything about the Bible Belt, we all know that that is where you go to find God or God finds you.
Well, and it's all very
So-
strictly Southern Baptist.
Every corner's got at least 3 churches, and usually of all different faiths in the Bible Belt.
But
now you have all
predominantly-
the children.
It is predominantly, though, Southern Baptist, and your Southern Baptist fundamentalists. I mean, like, where they're really extreme. You're
Like I said, there's different levels to all
Pentecostal.
religions. Absolutely. Now you got all these kids.
So they got in a panic, and they said that satanic cults was America's greatest threat to society. Well, yes, but a lot of it, most of that panic was really just kids being rebellious. I mean,
experimenting as they do.
down in the Bible Belt, they didn't really have a whole lot
Well,
to
when
do.
all you do is get preached 24/7 about how God would handle it or what Jesus would do or how you're supposed to walk a certain path or be this
Yeah.
specific way as teenagers, as all teenagers. We want to rebel.
Right.
We want to do things that are not what our parents want us to do because Lord knows they don't know anything. So this guy, you know, as they say, if you want to live forever, create a religion.
Right.
So here we go.
So Anton LaVey, he also was a musician. He produced and released 3 albums, including The Satanic Mass. We had a laugh at this one. Satan Takes a Holiday.
Like, I had to ask her, and you have to think in your head, when Satan is doing his job is literally
The
to
job of the
amplify your sin that brought you to this hell. So this is his job, is to do this every day, 24/7. So when you think of Satan,
Torture rate.
yeah, right. You think of this guy going on vacation, you're like, does he wear board shorts and drink Mai Tais in the beach? Like, and say, hey, yeah, Dad did a pretty good job. The scenery's kind of nice. You know, I'm just wondering, like, what does Satan do on holiday? Like, does he go to Paris? Does he eat rich food?
I wish we
because
could.
bread makes your butt get bigger. So
Only if we could call the man himself and say, hey.
Well, you know, if I went in hell.
Yeah.
Sorry. Not my religion.
It also included strange music.
See, I can get behind that.
So, and LaVey had also played a small role and was the technical advisor in the 1975 film The Devil's Rain.
Now, I specifically asked the spelling of this movie because rain, of course, there's a couple different spellings of it, and it is rain like rainfall. So, again, in my brain, I'm thinking rain falls down and not up.
Right. Yeah.
So I was like, I didn't get the title. Like, to me, that sounded slightly obscure.
So we do have a little treat for you
Yeah.
here in just a moment, but first I want to just say that he did serve as a host and narrator for Nick Buga's 1989 Mondo film, Death Scenes. Gonna have to check that one out sometime. But LaVey made his way into the media throughout the world. He
injected himself in all of the orifices of mainstream media.
literally the subject of countless magazines across the board, and he made several appearances
Oh,
as
yeah.
talk show host.
Talk shows all over. Donahue. He was on Donahue.
The Tonight Show.
The Tonight Show, yeah.
The Joe Payne
I'm
Show.
sure back when David was there.
I think I actually saw his daughter do it after her dad died on the Geraldo Show.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
Flash
so-
from the past. Stop aging yourself. I do it all the time.
We're a little
older. We're a
older.
little seasoned.
Yes.
We have
So-
attitude and we've earned it.
That's how we know all these stories.
That's right, because we're not afraid to delve inside our weird species.
So, one of these people that took the whole satanic thing really to a whole other level was Pazuzu Alvarado.
Wait, before we get into Pazuzu, did you want to do the little snippet for these guys? So they
Oh
can see?
yeah.
Now keep
Okay.
in mind, the film is from like the 1975 era, so you know, it's not like today where we got all these amazing graphics and, you know.
Right. So let's tell them who's in this film.
You gotta love this.
Okay.
Like
William
Shatner.
Shatner.
Travolta.
John Travolta.
John Travolta. Oh, and what's that other guy with the eyebrows? Oh my gosh. I can't remember
Oh
what
my
his
gosh,
name is.
Tracy.
I know, it's horrible. I'm so
Well,
horrible
maybe
with
you
names.
guys can tell us who it is and leave it
Yeah,
in the
leave
comments
it in the comments below, because I honestly can't remember what his name is, and I'm crappy with names.
I don't know why I want to say. Now that just.
It was on tip of your tongue, and it
I
just flew
So
right
we're
off
just
your
going to
brain.
go into this.
Yeah,
this,
let's get into it. Okay.
This here is a special edition trailer. And if you go and watch this movie, mind you, at the beginning, 4 minutes of credits before the film.
4
4 minutes.
minutes of rolling credits before you get to watch this movie.
We're gonna go over to this clip and let you guys watch it. Here it is, right here.
All right.
Hear me, O Lord, of life everlasting. I, Jonathan Corbis, petition thee to let me be thy voice on earth. O Master of the world, hear me. I petition thee. Hail, O Prince of the Abyss. In thy name, let us behold the Father, the Lamb, the Son,
See, you know, like,
Sorry.
the stars.
Fucking eyebrows.
Hail, O deathless one, who calls me from out of the pit. What is thy purpose? Has it been prepared? It has. And I command this soul to be purified by fire and water.
Bring Wilton Shatner over here so we can see the devil's face.
I didn't know it was John Travolta with the porn stash. I just noticed the dimple.
No, that's not John Travolta with the porn
Mighty
stash. That's
light.
another actor.
Oh.
Burning flame of comfort. Enter this body and cleanse it of its unworthy soul. Satan, Lord of Fire.
This was one of the scariest films that was
Light, in the name of Velia, Master of the Earth.
That's gotta be Antoine LaVey there.
Yes, that's Anton.
Now,
In the mask.
be sealed by the
In the
holy
hood,
waters of
hood.
forgetfulness.
Let me drip water on your face for a second.
Wait for the black eyes.
Wait for it! Wait for it!
Black eyes.
Niklas. Ave Satanas. Martin Fife. My servant. Come forth and claim the body I have prepared for you. Zodokare, vai nogliasi, open wide the mysteries of your creation unto this soul. Be friendly unto him, for I am the same, the true worshipper of the highest and most exalted King of Hell.
Praise be the Lord of light and darkness, who is my soul salvation.
What's with the Frankenstein haircut?
I don't know. Like, there's your Johnny boy.
Blasphemer!
Butt dimple.
Blasphemer! Seize him!
You, my son, defiled all that is holy.
Oh my God, my God!
Oh, that was his mama. Oh my goodness. All right. So again, that was from the 70s. 4 minutes of credits in the beginning of that movie. Of course, they did not have the abilities and graphics that they have now, or even the same
Yeah, but
applications and stuff.
what we're
for
laughing at
kids.
today
Oh my
was
gosh.
considered one of the most horrific,
Yeah.
scariest movies in
If you
the
look
drive-ins.
up the reviews, they were talking about how 3 young youth boys were watching the video. One of them actually vomited from watching this movie. That's what the review says. That one of the friends vomited, the other one was
Okay.
laughing hysterically.
Okay, so let's get on with this.
So-
Enough of Anton LaVey and the cheesy films.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So we're going to talk about Pazuzu Algarad, and he was one of those young kids during the height of the Satanic Panic who actually took it to the extreme. Now, he was actually born in San Francisco to 2 normal parents, August 12th, 1978. His parents, Timothy and Cindy Lawson. they gave their bouncing baby boy the name John Alexander Lawson.
Just a normal, everyday name.
He was a pretty angelic boy, but as he grew older, he began to kind of go towards the dark side. Now, an early childhood babysitter actually recalls when she would babysit Pazuzu, he actually wanted to always watch horror films. Well, she didn't really think anything of it. I mean,
Kids are great.
kids all like, their horror films.
Absolutely.
Who didn't watch
Right.
I
don't know if I could trust
Friday the
somebody
13th,
who hasn't seen
Halloween,
one.
right?
Yeah. I think everybody should experience it.
Well, but as he grew older, he kind of started to dive into the world of drugs and the occult. So I'm going to show a picture of Pazuzu as you see him with Satan on his arm.
Now, if you were to take off all those tattoos off his face, he'd be a very attractive young man.
So yeah, there's another. This is these photos were actually taken inside of his house of horrors in Clemens, North Carolina, and that's where this story takes place. Because being born in San Francisco, his parents moved over to North Carolina, but soon his dad and mom divorced. I think he was about 12 years old, I think.
Yeah. Not to mess a kid up.
So, as he grew older and got into drugs, and he's reported to have some mental health issues. His mom, Cindy Lawson, actually took him to a psychiatrist, and I believe they had some diagnosis of schizophrenia. So he was already kind of screwed up. But so in 2002, being an avowed Satanist, he goes and he changes his name from his birth given name to Pazuzu Algarad. Now, Pazuzu was the name of the Assyrian demon in
Our favorite horror flick.
The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Actually, me and my brother, when we saw that in the theaters when we were kids, we actually left.
You were that scared?
Yeah, I mean, my mom was,
Loved
yeah.
it. Oh, it was such a good flick.
Well, I mean, actually. But
I'm
I
twisted, sorry.
So, but
I love
I came from a very,
Yes.
Very religious, in my early childhood background. So, yeah. So, to go on and to see that,
Right.
it was like,
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So, there's like reports of him, like in bizarre, like sex practices, orgies in this house, which was disgusting.
Yeah, the house I heard was really horrific.
Yeah.
Like hoarders, like half high in rooms with like human waste.
Yes, garbage.
Could not. No.
Yeah.
No. Mm-mm.
So Pazuzu lived in this house with his mother and two girls, Crystal Matlock
That still blows my mind.
and what was the other girl's name? It was Crystal Matlock and Amber Nicole Birch. And yeah.
That still blows my mind, though, that they would reside in this residence.
Well, so
He must have been so charismatic.
well, there's a lot of people that were hanging out there, and they didn't care. They were like, people were just shitting in the corners and pissing in the corners. His
Or-
mom, like, I don't know how his mom.
I don't get it. Yeah, no. Mm-mm.
Yeah, Amber Birch. She is the one that actually said that she claimed on Facebook her status was married to Pazuzu, but I don't believe that they actually got married. But
So, according to her.
yeah. Well, so Pazuzu did some really bizarre things. Number one, filing his teeth down to tiny, sharp points. And Amber Birch, she did the same thing.
All I can hear is like either a metal file or a drill from a dentist. Oh, good Lord. Like, that's torturing yourself. I wonder if that made
you
them
have
happy.
ever had a toothache, you
Good
know
Lord, the nerve endings. Oh,
how they were. They had to have been like really messed
hi. Yeah.
up. Really messed up on
So
some.
under the influence, they would not be able to tell.
Well-
But filing your teeth to points, to sharp points.
So, you know, this story, it goes a pretty deep. You know, he started, you know, getting into like doing rituals, and it ended up, you know, with the result of two men losing their lives, and that was Tommy Dean Welch and Joshua Wetzer, and they actually he actually kept one of these guys, I think, or both of them, down in the basement, and he would tell people that would come over, he would be like, oh yeah, hey, if some dude comes up out of the basement, don't let him out.
That is boggling to the mind.
Dude,
That no one would call the authorities.
People would just like, oh, okay, yeah,
Laugh it
haha,
off.
laugh it off, you know?
And then go get high.
So, Amber Nicole Birch actually took one of her childhood friends to go meet this wonderful guy, Pazuzu. So she takes this lady, her friend, and
Such a wonderful friend.
yeah, I saw an interview, and she said that she literally walked into the front door, and the first thing that she said to him was, dude, your house smells like death. Because there was a rotting corpse in the basement.
At least one rotting corpse.
Yeah. So,
Ugh.
yeah, I'm gonna put up a photo here, and this is the backyard at the Clemens house, and this was during the investigation, and this is where they did the dig and found the two
Does
men's
that
bodies.
picture show next to the pool, or were they digging in the pool?
I think it's next to the pool.
Okay.
So these two guys, there's Joshua Wetz and Tommy Dean Welch. Now, I mean, they were wide. They were hanging out there, so it's not like he went and snatched him up and
Right.
kidnapped him.
They brought themselves to the house.
They did,
To
and
die.
they were definitely probably, you know, into, you know, the drugs, and who knows what had actually happened, but it said that Amber Birch actually committed one of the murders. I'm not sure which one, and the other, Crystal Matlock, she was only an accessory, like she helped bury the bodies.
An accessory after the fact.
So it was during his incarceration, he gets charged. He's in prison, in the central prison in Raleigh, North Carolina. And on October 28th,
Notice the time.
2015, at 4:20 a.m., he died in his cell from severe blood loss.
See, now this is where we start delving into the dark side of it, because they have said that they did not find what he had used to do that to himself. And they are under, which you should never assume, but they are under the assumption that he did it with his own teeth. So he literally bit his own flesh open and opened up a vein.
However, there was never any evidence that
Actually happened
that
either.
rumor
but
was
yes.
true. But yeah, so there was
imagine?
actually a very deep wound to a major blood vessel in his left arm, But yeah, so that was Pazuzu's last sacrifice, I guess. So that is that is a pretty prolific case, but. I want to go into one that is probably one of the most horrific cases I've ever ever heard of, and that is the Fall River Cult Murders. Now, if any of you guys would like to go back and revisit, sorry, I got a little, revisit the stories that we're talking about, you can go onto our website, ourdarknature.com, and you can go read about our topics in our blogs.
Absolutely.
And look at the photos. We have photos and probably a little bit more detail maybe in
Send
there.
us ideas on what you would like to see in our content for future shows. We're
You-
always
there's-
seeking...
yeah, you can leave us a comment.
Absolutely.
So the Fall River cult murders, and this happened in Fall River, Massachusetts, and it happened during the late 1979 and 1980, and it was a course of 3 murders, cult murders, that happened during the time as the Satanic Panic, right?
Of course.
So the Fall River cult was a group of young people that were in their late 20s, and teens, mid-20s. They would gather together to perform satanic rituals. Okay.
So they're having mass.
Okay, so that kind of seems harmless enough, right? Okay.
Any religion gets together and has their
Rituals,
masses,
right.
their rituals, their stuff.
Okay. But they were led by this man named Carl Drew. Yeah, Carl Drew. Yeah. So he claimed that he was actually the son of Satan, and that he could talk directly to him as he led these rituals. He'd often be talking in tongues, which some religious, I think it's the Pentecostals, they actually talk in tongues. So there's other religions
that
do it. And he used to also use a real human skull to drink fresh human blood during these rituals.
So you have to ask yourself, now, it was a human skull, but was it one that he acquired by removing said skull from a human host, or digging one up, or getting one from like the doctor's skeletons like they have at the doctor's offices?
I don't, who knows?
That's a good question. Like, where'd that skull come from?
Who knows? Well, here's a photo. I'm going to post, here's a photo. This is Carl Drew here. That's his arrest photo. Now, the cult actually operated in Fall River as a full-blown underground sex trafficking organization. And actually it was out of Bedford Street. And the cult members would actually act as pimps to the young sex workers. And a lot of these girls were runaways or drug addicts. And if they needed a place to stay, promises of money, Carl Drew would, then force them to work as sex workers. And if anyone wanted to leave, he would threaten them with violence.
Yeah. They don't let them go once they get them.
Now, Carl Drew, he grew up on a small farm in New Hampshire. His father was an alcoholic. Now, this might kind of shed a little bit of light on how he got twisted, but he often abused Carl. And he actually once tied a rope around Carl, lowered him down into a well full of dead rats.
Ugh.
And he told Carl that when he got down to the bottom, he was to grab onto a bunch of the dead rats. Like as if he was a human claw machine.
Ugh. Gross.
So Carl actually left home shortly after that. He was only 14 years old.
Don't blame him. No.
And headed to Fall River, Massachusetts, where he settled into the dark underworld.
This is where he starts to turn the other direction.
Right. So, you want to go ahead and tell them about Doreen Levesque,
Well,
sex, torture, and sacrifice.
absolutely. She was a 17-year-old runaway, but she's also from New Bedford. She joined the cult and worked as a sex worker. She served as Carl served as her pimp at the time, and then she, of course, like anyone in that world, doesn't even know what later the afternoon's going to bring for them, let alone in the future.
Had no idea.
Had no idea.
What horrors
So-
laid ahead.
So, unbeknownst to her, unfortunately, they do find her poor mutilated body. She's found in October 14th of 1979.
This was the first body.
Yeah,
that
it's the
they
first
found.
body that they have found. This poor woman was found under the bleachers at Denman Vocational High School over there in that area. And since she was in the business, the oldest business out there, according to everyone, they just thought it was something that had to do with her job at the time. So investigators never really kind of looked at it at the beginning. She had
But
been...
the forensic evidence
Yes, but she...
would tell a much darker tale.
yeah, she unfortunately was
So,
not so lucky of a person.
so yeah, forensic evidence actually showed that Doreen was stabbed several times in the head.
And considering your skull being there, do you know how much brute force that takes?
Well,
Like,
her skull had been completely crushed.
Yeah,
And
horrific.
there had been evidence showing that Doreen had been sexually tortured. Now, the coroner suggested that Doreen had been stoned to death, indicating that she had been killed by more than one person.
So now keep in mind that there was several notations in the Bible of people being stoned to death. So, of course, it would be understandable that it would take a sidestep into another religion.
It almost sounds like Carl Drude took some of these things from
Symbolisms and-
from the
yeah.
Bible and kind of
Morphed him into his own little torture device.
Well-
Because this is not, like I said, this is the first body that was found.
Doreen had not been the only victim to have succumbed to the horrors of the Fall River cult. There would be 2 more victims that would follow. One of them, Barbara Ann Raposa. Now, Barbara Ann Raposa, on November 12th, 1979, was just a month after the body of Doreen Levesque was found. A man named Andre Maltius walked into the Fall River Police Department and asked an officer if she had had any information on the disappearance of his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, Barbara Ann Raposa. Now, the officer was unable to give Maltius any information regarding Raposa's disappearance. However, Maltius reported to the officer various rumors he said that he had heard around town. Go figure.
Sounds like somebody's trying to cast a shadow somewhere else.
Right. So Raposa had allegedly gone missing allegedly on the evening of November 7th, 1979. Her father filed a missing persons report, and the following evening on November 8th, 1979, he filed that report, and then on January 26th, 1980, Raposa's body was found with her hands tied behind her back, her skull crushed in the same way that Doreen Levesque's had been.
Now, guess what industry she was in?
Well, she was also a sex worker. Now, according to court documents on the evening of Raposa's disappearance, a man named David Cowan picked up Raposa and her infant son, Eric. Now, this child is allegedly the son of Andre Maltius. So they take Eric, they drop him off at a babysitter, they go have dinner, enjoy a movie,
Yeah, absolutely. Date night.
but after the movie, they stopped for a short time to have dinner.
Yeah.
And
She said, hey, sorry, I need to make some money.
So she
Gotta
talks.
call the night.
She talks Cowan into dropping her off downtown so that she could
She
work,
could work
the
it.
streets.
Absolutely.
So Cowan did as she asked.
We'll catch up later.
The two of them, yeah, they made plans later to hook up at a local bar, but Raposa never showed up.
up. Yep.
And as the weeks followed, Maltese continued to induct himself into the investigation. Now, isn't that what a lot of the murderers will
Yeah. They gotta
do? They
be
like
right in
to
the thick
induct
of it.
themselves.
They want to be right in the thick of it all.
So, yeah, so he's like the devil in disguise, right? Now, it was in late November, early December 79, Maltese appeared at the home of State Police Trooper Lord Wheaton. Now, this is
Showed up at dude's house.
Well, it was a former classmate, so he kind of knew him. And he told Wheaton that he knew two women who might have information about the murder of Doreen Levesque. Now, here she comes back into the picture. Now, shortly thereafter, Maltese drove to the state police barracks at Dartmouth and asked to speak to someone investigating that murder.
Lord have mercy.
Okay, so Maltese was introduced to Corporal Paul Fitzgerald, and they arranged for another meeting to take place. And guess who that meeting to take place with? So he brings the two women.
Of course.
Right. Okay, so he brings
All the little cohorts come along.
he brings a girl named Robin Murphy and Karen Marston. And they go and they meet with this this police officer, Fitzgerald, and he reports on his attempts to garner information about Levesque's murder. So he's in there trying to get information. He's trying to feed information.
He's trying to drive the bus.
Yeah. So these two girls, though, especially Robin Murphy. We're going to talk a lot about Robin Murphy. Okay. So Robin Murphy. So I'll let you go ahead and tell this next part of the story.
Alright, so on February 7th of 1980, Andre was arrested and charged with the murder of Barbara Ann Raposa. And then they found and returned from the Superior Court on February 19th, 1980, that he was indicted for the murder. Robin Murphy was the chief witness for the prosecutor. So she was going to turn and flip so she could get a better deal and testify against their cohorts.
Got it.
So she decided she's gonna flip the script and go against her cohorts
So
in court.
here's the really interesting thing, though. So Maltese was actually convicted solely on Raposa's testimony.
Well, of course.
Or I'm sorry, Robin Murphy. Sorry, Raposa's murder. So it was Murphy's testimony.
Yeah.
Okay, so and that's according to court documentation. So
this is how they went about disposing of Raposa because
so here's I'll let you go ahead and read her testimony. This is
according-
Robin Murphy's
yeah.
testimony according to court documentation. So
Right.
go ahead and you read
So
it.
according to Robin's
Go ahead and read it because
documented testimony, this is what she says happened. Robin Murphy met Andre what is his last name?
Maltese.
Maltese, thank you very much. I'm so horrible with names. In a bar in Fall Rivers at approximately 12 midnight on the date of Raposa's disappearance. Murphy and Maltese proceeded to a local diner to pick up Raposa. As they drove there, Maltese told Murphy that he intended to kill Raposa for dating David Cowan. When the three of them left the diner, Raposa was in the front seat of the car with Maltese and Murphy in the back seat. So they're sitting behind her. So Maltese gave his passengers a marijuana cigarette, and all three of them were smoking weed. Murphy and Raposa started fighting. The fight continued until Maltese stopped the car in the woods near, is it Resco?
Resco.
And pulled Raposa away from Murphy. Maltese and Raposa talked outside the car while Murphy remained inside the vehicle. So Maltese returned to the car, got the keys and opened the trunk. Then he removed 2 paper bags, went into the woods with Raposa. Murphy observed Maltese and Raposa having sexual relationships in the woods. Murphy remained in the car listening to the radio. She did hear Raposa scream. She turned towards the wooded area and saw that Maltese was sitting on Raposa, holding a rather large rock with both of his hands above her head. And then Murphy turned away and then continued just listening to the radio. While we're going to guess what he was doing, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. Maltese returned to the car and placed the 2 paper bags in the trunk. He told Murphy that he wanted the victim to crawl away. So we can only surmise that she was still alive at this point if he's making reference to her crawling away. He drove Murphy to her mother's home. Murphy testified that Maltese threatened that someone would get her if she ever said anything against him. So basically, she's got Maltese telling her, listen, you open your mouth, you're gone.
So they used to have their rituals out in the woods near an area known as Family Beach in Westport, Massachusetts. And a subsequent search of the area actually yielded various items of clothing, blood-stained rocks, jewelry, and a clump of hair.
Could you imagine taking your kids to Family Beach and coming across a chunk of a skull?
Now, the remains were identified, now get this, as those of the victim, Karen Marston. Now, Karen Marston was one of the 2 women that went and talked to the investigators with Andre Maltese. Okay?
Yeah.
So, Marston had worked also for
Guess
Carl
what field?
Drew as a prostitute.
Right. Of course.
In the summer of 1979. Now, Marston met Robin Murphy, and they were acquainted, and they also said that the 2 of them actually had a sexual relationship going on. So, on the evening of October 12, 1979, while in the presence of Marston, Murphy and another Carl Drew killed another prostitute, Doreen Levesque. According to Murphy's testimony, the killing was performed as a diabolic ritual during which the soul of Marston was proportionally given to Satan. That's weird. So, purportedly, I guess that's like the soul, whatever, like.
Apparently, this whole thing was a ritual just to give the soul to Satan. That's it.
The relationship between Marston and Drew deteriorated. Marston attempted to sever her relationship with Drew and with the satanic cult. Marston and Drew frequently argued, and he threatened to kill her on several occasions.
So in actuality, she really was just a victim of convenience.
So she did actually, at one point, Marston did run away, and she went into hiding from Drew. She began living with Murphy, Robin Murphy.
Same circle though, that's a
Yeah,
problem.
she didn't really run far, did she?
Didn't go very far.
And another woman, Carol Fletcher. Also, at this time, Marston met 5 or 6 times with an officer of the Massachusetts State Police who was investigating the death of Levesque. Okay? So, it just kind of, it's just kind of like going in this big circle.
Just one big circle.
And so he tells Fletcher on February 4th, 1980, in the right time, in the right place, he was going to kill Carrie.
Because that sounds so logical to tell people your plans.
Yeah. So, on the evening of February 8th, 1980,
Guess what he does?
Marston, Fletcher, and Murphy were riding in Fletcher's car along Bedford Street. At some point, Drew got into the car along with a man named Carl Davis. Now, Davis directed Fletcher to drive to Family Beach in Westport. And you know what happens there?
Of course. It's so amazing there. We need a vacation soon.
So, Murphy drags Marston by the throat and hair into the woods. And this is after Carl Drew ordered her to take her out. So, as she did this, Drew walked alongside while Fletcher and Davis followed close behind. Murphy and Drew then began striking Marston with rocks. So here's the story.
Stoning again. It's like, can we get original, please?
Yeah, that'd be like a really horrible way to die, but I don't think she actually dies this way.
Probably not, but they're not very original.
So they continue to brutalize Marston. They torture her. Then Drew orders Robin Murphy to slit Marston's throat. And Murphy complied.
Why not?
So then Drew tore the head from the body and kicked it.
Soccer.
So now this is a headless corpse. And it goes even further than that.
Yeah, they can't just leave well enough alone.
So he actually...
Files the corpse.
Yes. And he wanted her to feel pain because she wanted to leave the cult. And so there were several people that were arrested, and he actually, after he takes the head, kicks it off, he actually orders Robin Murphy to perform oral sex on the headless corpse. Yeah.
Tells you where you stand, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's just like
It's just any other Sunday.
I'm just kind of sick right now, like, for that. Like, ugh. So, Carl...
Well, first of all, you have to realize that when a body dies, what does it do?
Yeah. It pisses chicks.
And now you have just been informed it is your turn to go to the buffet. Not my idea of a good meal.
That's horrible. So...
Like, who does that? Like, seriously, you can get so sick.
So Murphy, she testifies for the prosecution for a plea deal, for a lesser charge.
Of course, why not?
Carl Drew and Andre Maltese, they get sentenced to life in prison.
Should've got death.
Well, Andre later did die of cancer, but Carl Drew is still in prison. They did try and appeal. Both of them did appeal.
Oh,
but,
of course they did. Because it wasn't them. It's never them.
Their convictions were upheld. Well, Carl Drew, he claims that he is still innocent till this day. But
Aren't we all?
So Murphy, she gets sentenced to life with the possibility of parole. And here's the crazy thing. That in 2004, after serving 24 years in prison, Murphy was granted parole.
Bye.
Yeah. But only after 7 years of freedom, she was stopped by a state trooper and found with a woman with a felony record and in the possession of heroin.
Da-da-da-da.
So they send her back, and Murphy is to serve her life sentence out. But she will be eligible next year 2022 to go up and for parole.
Of course, because our judicial system is ridiculous.
So she was, just as guilty
Oh, I know.
of these guys. She was not coerced.
There was no coercion involved. She was a willing participant.
Well, she actually goes back to court and recants her testimony after Andre Maltius dies
and says that he was innocent.
that she
I lied.
lied because to pay him back for molesting her as a child.
Right. So let's look at it realistically. First of all, you've got all these women that are just convenient victims because they are working for these gentlemen in
Well, they're
this
drug
field.
addicts. They're drug addicts and they're runaways.
and they've got themselves into a position where not a lot of women actually know how to get themselves out of,
right.
because they're addicted or they are afraid or a culmination of both, or in other instances as well.
But
so
in their case,
they are in the position of being convenient victims.
they get with this psychopath
Yeah, now
that
they're
won't let him
going-
go.
Now they're going along with this new religious program because, of course, we all know it's just programming. All of it's programming.
So my kind of thought is when I was doing the research for this story was, there was there was more people involved in this
Oh,
cult
absolutely.
than just them. What happened to them? Did
Right.
they just kind of like?
Where's the spider web at?
Did they just kind of disperse and just?
You would have to think that they would want to get themselves as far away as possible.
But or
Just saying.
or
This is
or,
all before the internet.
Or they've carried on and they've
Secretly.
secretly and gone. Well, I think that they were pretty secret, to begin with, but maybe they kind of went further underground.
There are
And-
so many things that are going on with our species in general that a lot of people aren't even paying attention to. We've had so many stories lately in the news about various different human trafficking.
And yeah, I think a lot of
So it's not
a lot of children
Yeah.
are
It's
missing, a lot of people.
definitely something that has been going on for a very long time. It was going on long before it became a hashtag movement.
Right.
But it most definitely is a difficult situation to get yourself in and get yourself out of. Unfortunately, when you put yourself
What are you talking about? Prostitution?
well,
or
all of it,
satanic cult?
all of it. When you get yourself in any of that kind of position, you wind up having problems. Oh, we have a guest.
Holy shit, are you rolling?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, God damn it.
Hi, guys.
Our wonderful friend
Okay,
Brian is
so,
here.
Yeah.
Again, when you put yourself in that position, any position that religion, prostitution, drug, you put yourself in that position at all, some people find it extremely difficult to get themselves out of that particular position.
Yes.
So-
So we're gonna just wrap it up with that, and our next episode will be coming soon, and I hope you enjoyed it.
So give us a like, thumbs up, give us any ideas that you would like to hear us talk about.
And we promise we're gonna get better at it.
Absolutely! I'm still going to give you attitude, so you're just
All
going
right.
to have to deal with that.
Okay.
I'm Tracy.
I'm Linda.
Bye!